All right, so this is fight 184. It's up in Chiang Mai at the Taipei Boxing Stadium, which means I'm probably about to go on a little bit of a fight spree. I'm voicing this 4 years after the fact, so I fought this fight in 2017. It's currently 2021, and I just was fighting so much at the time that I couldn't keep up with myself. So I'm voicing this a while later. So I'm just going to talk about what I remember and comment on my fights as I do with my voiceovers. I'm fighting Sudsiam Sor Sumalee. When I was a fighter up at Lana Muay Thai in Chiang Mai for my first 2 years when I came to Thailand, I was fighting a lot. And I actually was fighting Sudsiam's younger sister, who's named Yoding Sor Sumalee. And Yoding's smaller than Sudsiam, but still significantly bigger than me. This fight is listed in my records as at 59 kilos. At this stadium, they actually weigh in the fighters before the fight, and you don't have to weigh the same. It's not like a weigh-in unless it's important for some reason, like for a belt or something like this, or if you've, prior to the fight, made an agreement about what the fight weight is going to be. My fights aren't like that. So she weighed 59. I probably weighed around 47, 48, so she's a solid, 11, 12 kilos bigger than me. And when I was fighting her younger sister, Yoding, I think I fought Yoding like 13 times. I think she might be who I've fought the most repeatedly. And then shortly before I left Chiang Mai, I had kind of graduated to fighting Sudsiam. And I didn't win. She's so hard. She's so much bigger. I was not used to fighting people that much bigger yet. She's southpaw. Her sister's also southpaw. And she's just, in her southpawness, she's very, very good at posting and just launching a left kick. There are really, really high-level southpaw fighters who basically are just a left kick. Sang Mani is basically just a left kick. Yotsen Klai is basically just a left kick, although Yotsen Klai's kick is just like a fucking cannon being fired at you. So it's, a nasty left kick. But she fights in a way that southpaw fighters can have very high efficacy in the way that they fight just with this huge left kick. So this is now years after I had moved down to Pattaya, and I was training with Petrungrung, but I can't fight in Pattaya. There's no fights for women. So I was still traveling up to Chiang Mai to fight, and I would fight in these strings. So I would go up and have 4 or 5 fights in a week, and that's what this is. So I've rematched Sudsiam since moving down to Pattaya. I'm facing her again after our kind of reintroduction to each other. And I was amazed that I beat her the last time I met her up in Chiang Mai after having moved to Pattaya and come back. So now I'm facing her again. And there's something that you need to know about that any given Sunday phrase is that anything can happen in a rematch. I think people are very, very ill-informed or simply don't know. I don't mean ignorant in a you're an ignorant, but people simply don't know that rematches are actually an incredible way to test yourself and improve, because once you've done something and someone knows what it is that you do, it's actually harder to beat them. It's not a I've beat you once, I beat you forever kind of situation. So I'm starting out a little bit slow in round 1, which isn't always the best idea for me because of the kind of fighter I am. Just a fucking massive left kick right there, and it landed right on my open side. If you're not familiar with closed side, open side, there's a hierarchy in strikes in Muay Thai, a kick to the middle is much bigger than a jab to the face or whatever. But open side, closed side is a big deal. So if you look, we're in mixed stance. I'm standing orthodox, she's southpaw. So look at how the right side of my body, that's the open side, because it's just a much bigger target. So when you have mixed stance like this, your power side can land on your opponent's open side, so it means really big scoring. That's why southpaws who just have an enormous left kick, if they can land it, they're scoring high all the time because it's to the open side. So I'm kind of interrupting her front side a little bit, which strategically, if we were the same stance, would be great, because that would be her open side. But leg kick, body kick, those both landed actually. I think she's meeting this rematch as a fuck you. I'm locking her right arm with my, I'm hooking over it, and then I've got control on the left side. So she's shown her top cards already in round one with this huge left kick, and I've shown my pretty high cards with that lock in the clinch already in round one. So we're getting right to it. Oh. So I landed two little something-somethings to her closed side there, and then she landed a kick to my open side, so she basically outscored me with one kick in that exchange. Oh wow, my corner's really yelling at me already, and it's only round one. That's not normal. Round one doesn't matter that much, so you won't hear a lot of yelling and screaming in round one. I don't know who this guy is in my corner. This is Dang, whose head is coming through the ropes, but I do not know who this man is in the ring with me.
Sylvie, clinch away from the
Interesting. Interesting. Dang must have just brought him as someone to help him. Dang is capable of cornering me by himself, but it's a little bit difficult because you have to put the tray up, you have to climb in, you have to do all this stuff, and then you have to like dismantle everything. So it can be a little bit hard to do it yourself. So often they'll get like a young kid or another fighter or something to help you. So because it's round one, even though she was landing some really nice scores there, they don't matter for the overall arc of the fight yet. It might work against her if she goes down from there, because if you bring out your big guns, you show your nice cards in round one, and then you don't have a way to escalate, the narrative of the fight is that you never like ascended. Same for me, if I like started out with that nice clinch lockup in round one and then wasn't able to do it later, it sucks that I like pulled out my big guns in round one and then didn't continue on with it. So you have to think about the overall narrative of a fight. You don't have full control of it because it depends on what your opponent can do and what your opponent does do as well. But in the constant interaction of a fight and telling your story, writing checks in early rounds that you're going to cash later, these are all considerations in how to fight a fight that's scored in Thailand according to Thai scoring in a 5-round format. Oh, she doesn't like me. I can see that like huff that she did. Oh, it's a nice fucking kick. So as a Muay Thai fighter, I'm gonna take those kicks. It's just gonna happen, and it's how I respond to it that matters in terms of this narrative that I'm talking about. In Thai, it's called ning, or chuche. Ning means to be like unaffected or unbothered by something. So I basically just have to like be like, yeah, I feel that, and it's not a big deal. I've actually switched stance. I'm coming at her. Well, I switched back, but I was coming at her southpaw for a second, which closes my open side. It was a clever idea for a second. She can't clinch me. See how she has this like scarecrow thing and she doesn't know how to leverage her arms down? She's trying to just squeeze me, but I actually have the leverage there. Oh, now I'm trying to like push her face and I can't. She has a better wrap around my neck there, so she actually got a pretty good position. Look at her. This is her whole thing, this kind of like creep back, and then she tags me as I'm trying to close in. She's trying to body lock me. That's interesting. That doesn't score very high in contemporary Muay Thai, and the Golden Age body locks were a total thing. And now they just don't give points for it the way that they used to, so it's not really a used technique. So you can hear Dang screaming, right kick. So he basically wants me to land the same high scoring point that she's landing on me with her left kick. I'm not really a kicker. Oh, she's got a nice lock around my neck. See how her blue gloves are kind of like locked together like this? That's a good lock for her. And she's doing these little like rabbit knees, which unfortunately score. But I don't think she won that exchange necessarily. Now I'm starting to block. I'm using a cross block on her right kick, which is good. Those can be tricky depending on the kicker. She's so much bigger than me. Because I'm crossing my body, sometimes it can off balance you, but that's not what's happening here. A little hop from me in the clinch, that's good. That like rattles your opponent, so I'm able to get a better position even though we're both kind of locked up. I got a thumbs up from whoever this guy is in my corner. So the message to take away from round 1 and round 2, neither of which are really scoring rounds yet. So neither of these matter that much unless they have to later in the fight, if it's so razor close that you have to like go back and look at round 2 or round 1. The reason it affects the rest of the fight is that you're telling a story. So between round 1 and round 2, I got better. Like, I struggled in round 1, she was landing all those kicks. I started blocking them in round 2, so I looked much better. I locked her up really well in round 1, and she had nothing for me. In round 2, she started locking me back, so she got better too. So I got a thumbs up from my corner because my arc, my story arc from round 1 to 2 is that I'm improving. That's good. So now I just have to keep on my escalator in round 3 because now it's a scoring round. So now I have to establish my lead, and then I'm also gonna have to climb in round 4. She might not have the stamina to keep climbing in rounds 3 and 4, but based on her style, she doesn't necessarily have to march me down or anything like this. She's just gotta land as many left kicks to the open side of my body as she can, which she is amazingly good at. So she's totally still in this fight, even though my little escalation between round 1 and 2 was a thumbs up from my corner where they're like, good, you're on the right track. What it is she has to do, she's capable of doing at this point in the fight in order to kind of, not necessarily ascend herself, but crush my ascension. It's that left kick. Woo. Her sister has a really nice right hook, lead hook. She broke my nose in one of our early fights, her sister. So I'm trying to hop in with my left leg up, which allows me to cross block, but it also dissuades her from teeping. So she's locking me up pretty good. She landed a knee. The more I move, she has to rebalance herself all the time, so she's not going to be scoring, because when you're rebalancing yourself, you can't throw anything. So my little like shift arounds in the clinch are a good way to keep someone from scoring. And off balancing breaks their roop, which means their composure falls apart, and you get points for that as well. Oh, disengagement. She hit me on the way out. That's a good idea. I'm fighting her as though she's orthodox. I've switched stance again. So I'm kicking her with my left leg, which is to her closed side. When I talk about open and closed side, it's not like you don't throw to the closed side. Absolutely still throw to the closed side. It's just like when you're throwing darts at a dartboard, know that the center is worth more than stuff on the outside. That's what I'm talking about closed side and open side, is that when you land an open side kick, it's a much bigger point. It's the bullseye rather than a closed side kick, but that doesn't mean you don't aim at other targets ever. Oh, she's getting some knees in there. I'm locking outer knee with my knee. Stupid rabbit knees. Those do actually, they're not like points on a calculator, but they do kind of work towards someone's favor. Because you're showing that you're balanced. To be able to like slop your legs like this, it means that you're balanced. It's a little bit of a rough round for me, actually. Because my thing is the clinch. So if I come in for the clinch and I'm starting to get snuffed, or she's keeping up with me on those little rabbit knees, even though I'm landing some other knees. Again, like close side, open side, if she's landing these little rabbit knees and I like boom straight into the center, I get like a really nice, beautiful, you know, chicken wing knee or something, I outscore her. Like one good knee is better than like 5 little rabbit knees. But he's saying don't lock her around the waist, lock her up top so that I can yank her down, off balancing her, breaking her roop, and like ripping her around so that I can land higher scoring knees. In the story arc of this fight, it's uphill for Sylvie right now because round 3 was not, from round 2 to round 3, it was not me establishing a lead enough that I can kind of calm down in round 4. Instead, it's this kind of like, we're still neck and neck like this, and she's got this kind of like, okay, if she wants to just start kicking in this next round, I have a much harder hill to climb because the thing that makes me dominant was not super dominant in that round. Let's go. I tend to have good round 4s, so I hope it's a good round 4. My amazing flexibility on display right there. How does she do it, people say? It's just God's gift, I guess. Super, super unflexible. It does not affect my fighting. It just makes me look ridiculous when people are trying to stretch me. Oh, there's a lot of yelling going on. The gamblers are on the opposite side of the ring from where Kevin is filming. They're like over in that corner where the cameraman is up on the ring. So you'll hear them a little bit at the starts of rounds. She likes that leg kick, open side kick thing. She's way into that. Dang is telling me to go, 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 because I have to basically like wear her down in this round. Because if I let her stay ahead in this round, she doesn't have to do anything in round 5 and wins. So I basically have to kind of like mix up the narrative of what happened in round 3. That was a good exchange for her. Go. Go. She's keeping me off of her pretty well. I have to like, what is it? It's a Afrikaans nesbit is to like bite down on your vasbit, is to bite down on your mouthpiece. That's what I have to do. I have to like bite down and go in. Oh. See how she's also able to score and then kind of like slow down and take this little like now I'm finessing move? That's good for her. All right. So she's answering my knees. Oh! It's good for me. Head through the rope. Oh, she's tired. Go, Sylvie. Go, Sylvie. Don't take that. Don't take that leg kick, body kick thing. Oh, now I've gotten around the back of her. This is a huge point. If you can take someone's back in Muay Thai, it's a really good dominant thing. See how she can't get her arm out? She managed to turn herself around, but I've landed some really nice knees. It's unfortunate I went down with her, but I landed on top, so I think it's okay. I checked over at my corner, and they're telling me to go still. There's a danger to checking your corner in late rounds because you have to do what they say to do. So if you're checking, it's generally because you're like, was that enough? Can I kind of start dancing now? And if they're like, go, you can't be like, no, I'm not gonna go. You've kind of screwed yourself by looking at your corner. So when you look, it's if you really don't know whether you're ahead or if you're like, for sure you're going to be able to dance and they're going to give you permission to back up. If you think like, I'm going to look and they're going to tell me to go, just don't look. Just don't look. There's a third person yelling at Dang. He's telling me to stay closer. Like I basically in that round was, Kevin and I call it staying on the porch. What that means is that you close distance and then you stop just a little bit too far from my own striking zone, which is short range. I'm a short range fighter. And so I'm in her striking range because she's a kicker and she's taller than me. So you just go and then you just stop on the porch and there's nothing that you can do. So Dang there is telling me, go all the way in, stay very close to her. When you stay close to an opponent, one, you're out of their pad work range, which is where they spend all their time kicking and throwing punches, and it's very comfortable. If you step just inside that, everything becomes very uncomfortable, and they actually stop breathing just unconsciously. They're like, this is too close. It's kind of claustrophobic. I think I have a Sylvie's Technique vlog on getting out of pad range, which means being slightly closer. It has a huge effect on fights, but you have to practice it. You can't just decide it. Here we go, here we go. They call this singdam in Thai. It means like sinking the 8 ball. They'll start chanting, ooh, she tried to kick me there and lost her balance. That was actually good for me. So I always have a gas tank in the last round, which my opponents don't always. So I might have an advantage here if it stays in the clinch range and her roop will not look so great at her kicking range. Oh, she's trying to turn me. This is the thing. You'd think that like me being so small and her trying to turn me and not being able to would be like so amazing for me. There's this thing about size differences, which is everything she does, people just naturally believe is significantly harder than what I do because she's so much bigger. So even if she's just doing these little paddleboard knees, she's so much bigger, people are like, that has effect. So when you're the smaller fighter, you're actually working uphill against the size disparity. Oh, I have a nice lock on her and she can't get out. The more she struggles and tries to get out, ripped her down and landed a knee while she was off balance. That's really good. It looks like a magic trick on my part because I'm smaller. In the same way that because she's bigger, everything has an effect because they're like, ooh, big, that must be good. When I'm small, if I can move her, they're like, how did she do that? So my corner is like pull out, pull out, pull out. So what I just did to her against that rope, off balancing her and digging my knee in, because this round was singdam, because this round was so close. So another way to say this is Susi, means like really close. Like, kept her standing like while she was kicking. Block. When it's really, really close like that, one distinct moment can make a close fight a blowout. It's bizarre. They're actually really, really close, but one thing makes it like a runaway. And that's what that was against the corner, or against the ropes there. She fought that really, really well. I know this feeling. I feel bad when you're like, you're almost there kind of thing. Yeah. That's a good win for me. She's so much bigger, and she was like my adversary before moving down to Pattaya. And I was not winning that fight in a clear way until that very last second. That was definitely a like stole that fight right at the end there. This is kind of a cool thing that happens is when I come out of the ring, there are people who know me from online or have seen me fight in Chiang Mai before. If they're Thai, they've been seeing me for a while and they come say hi or take a picture. So this guy wants a photo as I'm walking out, and I said we should go over to the Taipei seal. I think he just wants it right here. That's all right, we can do that. Celebrity Sylvie. I'm like, when I come out of the ring, I'm so lizard brain. I'm like always very spastic, and Kevin's like, calm down. Like, just go take your wraps off and calm down. You can take pictures in a minute. And I'm like 1,000 miles an hour, always. When I come out of the ring, it's the post-fight like adrenaline. You can see how huge I am when I come into the general population as well. There are a lot of people who have been following me online, and then they actually meet me in Thailand in person for the first time, and they're like, oh my God, you're so small. I'm like, which part of that do I not make clear? I am quite small. I'm always super stoked when people come up and they're like, I'm training Muay Thai in Chiang Mai because of you. That makes me really, really happy when people are like coming to Thailand and getting into their Muay Thai journey because they're inspired by, I don't know which part of what I put out there, but something about what I put out there. That makes me feel very, very happy. Dang's trying to get me. Dang's trying to like cut in so that he can start taking my gloves off. I'm always the last fight, so he just wants to take my gloves off and go home, which is totally fair. You also have to give your gloves back. The gloves belong to the stadium, and I have little like deer hoof feet, so usually you can just kind of slide them right off, but sometimes the tape is, yeah, he got my gloves already. Sometimes the tape is tight enough that you have to like undo the whole thing, but usually I can just kind of like slip them off. Holy fuck. I said she's bigger than last time. That was a hard fight. That was a very hard fight for me, and I just managed to eke it out. I switched stance for a second in that fight, and so I was saying Karahat would be happy about that, because he's the one who switched my stance. Hey, I am at Taipei Stadium, and that was fight 184. And I fought Sudsiam again, who I fought a few fights ago. She was like 9.5 kilos bigger than me, and now she's 11 kilos bigger than me. So it was a bit of a challenge, hard to move her. but I've been working on things that ended up being accessible in this fight, which made me really happy. We trained with Karahat yesterday on the way up, and the last time I trained with Karahat, he had me switch stance and be working on southpaw, which Pinu picked up on and has been helping me with for the past like 4 days before this. So while I didn't do a whole lot of that in the fight, I did feel like I was on balance and available at way more angles than I normally am. And this was a much harder fight than our last one. I was able to pull it out, but it was really difficult. And yeah, happy with the win, fighting again on Friday. So I'll see you guys there, and thank you everyone who watched on the live.